Hi, you guys. Thanks for tuning in. This is Nyle Lynn, your New York City acting coach. Welcome to class. This is From Stage to Screen on Boom, Broadway's official online masterclass. And today is about on-set safety. Okay, so you guys know on-set safety, stage safety, combat safety, stage combat safety has always been super important, right? We've all heard about stunt actors getting hurt on set, about soap opera actors picking up a prop gun and putting it to their head and then ending up dead. I mean, actors have died because of safety fails on set. And now it's 2020 and there's a global pandemic. So on-set safety is now a huge concern for everybody, whether you're a stunt actor or not. Whether you're in the props department handling the prop guns or the prop swords or not, because this pandemic that has hit all of us on the globe is making it difficult for everybody to get back to work, including us actors and filmmakers and everybody involved in a creative profession. So I'm going to share with you some set safety tips. This is not legal advice, it is not medical advice, and it is not official from any union or any organization. This is my on-set on-stage experience as an actor and my experience as a New Yorker living through COVID in New York City and having tested for antibodies. So, questions that you can ask as an actor when you book something or before you even audition, things that they should be telling you in an audition notice, I think, nowadays, so that you don't waste your time, but sometimes that's not going to happen, but hopefully more people are saying, hey, by the way, we'd like you to audition for this and our set's going to be COVID compliant. So here's some questions. Does the production carry liability insurance for workers' compensation? And injury and all that stuff. To shoot, you must legally have insurance for union production for most countries, states, everywhere. And I would recommend it for a non-union production too. I think that that might even be required. So again, this is not legal advice or medical advice or official union advice. So look, and the reason why I say that is because it's different, and this is a global platform boom, and so it's going to be different in Ireland than it is in, somewhere in Russia and somewhere in like Kenya, and then New York and LA or Georgia or Florida or Vancouver or Montreal. So it's going to be different everywhere. So make sure you know what the rules are, what the law is in your area, and make sure you're complying with those laws as far as on-set safety and on-set insurance for, and it doesn't matter what you're shooting, you should have insurance, I personally think. Okay, so who is the COVID compliance officer on set, or the health and safety manager? So COVID compliance is really similar to the health and safety manager. In New York City, I know that a COVID compliance officer needs to have an OSHA 30 certification. That's for New York. That's what I know about New York. It is very different in every single area. So find out in your area what the certificate that's needed is for your area, because it varies, okay? And do they have the proper, qualifications to be the COVID compliance officer or the health and safety manager? It's called different things in different places. For you, how many days before production do you need to get your COVID test to make sure that you're negative? Which kind of COVID tests are you required to get? Because there are different ones now. There's a rapid one that it can be, I'm not going to talk about any of that. I'll just tell you there's different ones. There's a rapid one. There's ones you send to the lab. There's different tests, and there's new ones coming. I'm not going to get into any of the medical because I'm not a medical professional. I'm just a person with acting and on-set experience to share with you. So we'll stay out of that, but you can look all that up, and you should ask your production company or ask your agent to ask them which test is she or he supposed to get, or they, and how soon before production, how close to production, and it, that's going to change the test because sometimes the turnaround isn't fast enough? Is there a certain clinic that you have to go to, that they're sending you to, and how many days do you need for that? And who's paying for the test? Do I pay up front? Do they reimburse me? Like for other expenses where you would keep like the receipt and be reimbursed, how does that work? Always ask those questions up front. If you're traveling, how many days do I have to quarantine before I get tested again and come to set negative? So for example, if I were to fly out to LA, I would have to quarantine for a certain amount of days. I'm assuming, because the thing is if people fly here from California, they have to quarantine for 14 days minimum, and because their state is like it's a hot state. It's a red state right now. It's like, and I don't mean hot as in fire. That's also a horrible thing that they're all going through. But there were, hot zones for COVID. Like there were states that were red, and we couldn't travel to them and then come back without having to quarantine. At one point in New York City, you couldn't leave for more than 24 hours and come back without quarantining for 14 days. And that's not acting. That's just like everybody was required to quarantine. That's how we flattened the curve, was like we were all inside, and when we went out, we wore masks, and we didn't go out when we were sick. If we knew we were sick, we didn't go out. And so who's paying for your travel? Are you doing local hire, therefore, i.e. paying for yourself and paying for your housing yourself, which is local hire in the United States? Who's paying for the travel? What is the COVID-free safe housing? Like, how do I know if they're putting me up? Are they putting me in a place that has been COVID sanitized, COVID cleaned? If I'm traveling to a hot zone state where, there's a spike in COVID, how do I know that that place has been cleaned and safe? Now, right now, I'm not traveling anywhere, but I do love to work as a local hire. Like, I love to travel places and do movies. Like, it's so much fun. And so, I hope to travel again in the future, and I'm guessing that you guys would like to travel too, as well as work in your home state or country. So that's a good question to ask. Always, even when we're not in the middle of a pandemic, like, who's paying for my travel, who's paying for my housing, or am I paying for my travel and housing? And then, how close do I need to be to set? Give me a recommendation for a hotel. What type of mask will be used on set, and will production be supplying them to cast and crew? In the United States of America, most of the sets are providing a surgical mask when you get there. And I would say that also, because I've been to quite a few businesses now that we've opened back up in New York, most places that you're going into here, like if you're going to a doctor's appointment, you come in with your cloth mask that maybe you got on Etsy or something, because that's all you could get at the time because there weren't any masks, and they give you another mask inside to either go over your mask or replace your cloth mask, because they want a certain type of mask. So that'll probably be the same for set. I know it is here in New York. You'll get like a surgical mask. Certain people on set, including the COVID compliance officer, will probably be wearing an N95 as, because they're dealing with cleaning things. They're dealing with keeping everything clean. So they're more of a high contact person and at higher risk if they're a COVID compliance officer or a health and safety manager. But it'll be different for every set. What are the social distancing rules, and who will be ensuring that everybody follows them? So in New York City, the social distancing guidelines are 6 feet apart, and if you can't stand 6 feet apart, wear your mask. So we're all wearing masks because, as you know, New York City's crowded, so there's no real social distancing unless you're in Central Park, and you can really space out and be far apart and have a COVID safe picnic far away from somebody where they've brought your own lunch and you brought your own lunch and they're 6 feet away, but still, it's challenging all around. So you also might get to a set, and, the star has only agreed to be on set 12 feet away from everybody because they have an elder parent who has pre-existing conditions, and they only agreed to sign up for the film because the production promised them that nobody will be anywhere near them at all and that everybody's tested. So that it could be more than 6 feet, just follow the directions and make sure you know them to a T and write them down and carry them in your phone, or I prefer a little small notepad on set, because the thing is like, I know everybody's checking their phones on set, but it can look unprofessional if you're checking your phone, and it can also interfere with sound. So I do recommend like getting a small little notebook that you can fit in a pocket or a fanny pack, or the pocket of your leggings for us ladies, or something simple like for you guys, if you can put it in your shirt pocket, like that you can just throw aside, that has like your little notes in a pencil and paper, because looking at your phone all the time on a professional set just makes you look like you're not paying attention, whereas having a notepad makes you look like you're really paying attention. Okay, so just a little side tip for that there. What PPE is production providing, that's the masks. What social distancing rules, we went over that. Okay, number 10 here, when and where is the temperature check happening before getting to set? Like, so when you get to set, before you enter set, or when you get to theater, before you enter the theater, there will be a temperature check, most likely, in order for it to be COVID compliance. It's one of the things they're doing at the hospitals here in New York. I went to a fundraising benefit for a dear Broadway star that passed away, and that we did a fundraiser for, well, I didn't do the fundraiser, I attended the fundraiser, but a fundraiser was done in memoriam for this wonderful actor, and they checked our temperature before we went in, and then the singers were like 20 feet away, and we were all in plexiglass cubes watching the benefits with our mask on. I had my mask, I had my face shield, everything, just to be really respectful of everybody else, and just so that if you want to find out more about that theater and how they're making it work, it was called Open Jar Studios, and it's in Midtown Manhattan. That's Open Jar Studios in Midtown Manhattan. I do not work for them. I just think, as we get theater and film up and running, it's good to see other examples of places that are making it work. So that's one place where they were definitely on point with it. And they sewed masks and hospital gowns for our nurses and doctors here in New York City when we were all going through it. And it just makes, they make me proud, even though I didn't even know they existed before all of this. It just, as a New Yorker, as a fellow New Yorker, it, uplifted my spirits. So, temperature check. Has your trailer been cleaned for COVID? So if you have a trailer on set, has that trailer been COVID cleaned, like disinfected? There's a difference between just like tidying up a trailer and making sure it's disinfected. So has your trailer been disinfected from the last actor that was on there? Because if you're shooting a film, maybe you're shooting later in the day and there was another actor in there in the morning, and yes, they tested negative for COVID, but maybe it was a false negative and they really have COVID. You can't be too safe. I would recommend like getting yourself a mini Lysol and carrying it with you, and making sure to wipe things down when you get there, just in case, and having some hand wipes of your own. Okay, and then is the catering COVID safe on set? So now, craft services, which is what catering is called on set here in the United States, and so we nickname it crafty. Crafty on big film sets used to be like, oh, amazing. Like, I worked on a film that Martin Scorsese produced, and the crafty was out of this world. Like, I totally gained weight on that film because it was such good food. It was amazing. And you used to go to the buffet and eat everything, and now that's no longer how it is. Everything's prepackaged. You only have your own food. There's no go up and order, get whatever you want. It's all prepackaged. So I would imagine you have to put in a food request ahead of time, kind of like you do when you're going to a friend's wedding, RSVP, chicken, fish, or, tofu, So I would imagine you're filling out your food ahead of time. I don't know, because I haven't gotten back to set yet, because obviously I was dealing with recovery from being sick and all that. Is the makeup artist, this is very important, is the makeup artist trained in COVID sanitizing and safety? This is so important, you guys. Even if you're doing an indie film with your friends, please hire two things. If you're doing indie films with your friends, you spend money on a makeup artist who is like certified in sanitizing of everything and has different makeup tools for everybody and different makeup for everybody, and you make sure you have the budget to buy each actor their own makeup and don't mix things up, and everybody has their own brushes and everything is separate. And the other thing you spend money on an indie film, because we all know we can film on our freaking iPhones nowadays with the new 12 that's coming out Pro. I mean, don't even let me get into that, because like of course I want it. Who doesn't want it? It's amazing. That's a whole different subject. You've got to spend money on your makeup artist, your hairstylist if you have one. Some people do makeup and hair. You've got to make sure they're sanitizing everything, that they're COVID safe, and you, of course, as always, have to spend money on sound. After sanitization, sound is everything. Sound will always be everything. Sound was everything before this pandemic. Sound will be everything after this pandemic. Okay. Is the MUA, the makeup artist, that's what we call them, being provided with separate disposable sanitary applications and separate makeup for each actor? Who is the on-set medic? So if someone does go into cardiac arrest from COVID or any other reason, is there an on-set medic there to try to save them? That's where we're at right now, you guys. I mean, there's any day that someone can die of something on set, so that's why there's an on-set medic. But there's more likelihood nowadays because of what's going on in the world. If it's a union production, do you have a union approval to do this shoot? And which unions do you have approval from? That question you should ask before 2020 and after 2020. You can ask that question in 2030. Always make sure, if you're in a union, that this shoot is approved by your union, because you will get in trouble for doing it otherwise. Now, in the United States of America, there are right-to-work states, and you can be union and do non-union stuff. That's a whole different subject. It's too much for this video. So don't be afraid to ask these questions of whoever is booking you for the job, whether it's casting or a producer, or ask the AD. But if you have an agent, ask your agent to ask these things. And don't think about it as you're being difficult, because normally, yes, you don't want to be a difficult actor. In any other time except during a global pandemic, you don't want to be like, oh, well, what wardrobe am I wearing? And are they going to cut my hair? Are they not going to cut my hair? And who's my makeup artist? And da-da-da. Normally, yes, I would never, like, I don't ask anything. I just show up and do what I'm told, right? I'm an actor. And I also produce and direct and do all those things. So I know how to be a very good actor. And I'm not talking about like my talent, but a very well-behaved actor. Show up on set, keep my mouth shut, hit my mark, do what I'm told, know all my lines, don't ever call for line, be really appreciative, easy to work with, don't make it complicated, right? That's how it used to be. Now, with this pandemic and how many people have died globally, you are not being a difficult actor if you're asking health and safety questions so that you can keep yourself and your family members safe. No one's going to label you as difficult, and if they do, you don't want to work with them anyway. So more likely is that if they don't do a COVID compliant film or theater production, they are going to be labeled as very bad to work with and don't ever work with again. I have actually already gotten emails like, don't work with these people, they're not COVID compliant. So if you're a filmmaker or a theater producer or a film producer, make sure your or television or any media, YouTube, anything like that, if you're having anybody else on set except for you and your cell phone, you better be safe, because word is getting out if you're not, because it's a life or death situation now. It's always been high risk, especially for stunt performers, but now it's high risk for all of us, right? And stunt performers are so amazing. That's a whole nother topic. I have some stunt performers that I really love. I have some acting students that are also stunt professionals, you know, like amazing. They're amazing at what they do. That's a whole nother subject. So everybody just please stay safe and healthy, and, you know, hopefully sooner rather than later, this will all be over and we can all get back to creating theater and film. I know we're up and rolling in many ways here in New York City and in California, and we're even doing outside theater in the park here in New York City. And you know, there was a Broadway benefit in an actual theater, and with all these COVID compliant restrictions and rules and safety precautions. So it is happening. We're getting back to it. I want to give you some hope because I know that many of us are struggling with what is happening in the world right now. And I'm here for you to encourage you and to support you in this time. So feel free to reach out to me if you need to. And I hope to see you in my next class. This is Nyle Lynn, your New York City acting coach. And this is my class from stage to screen on Boom.